This edition of Stippling Saturday may seem kind of boring because I'm just hitting this area of the neck, but I mean, it's important not just to show quick, easy, how like the last one was doing the hair and such, but how it takes layering upon layering of different types of dots, different intensities of dots, different sizes of dots, to get that blending in the way you want it. So like, because this area here, I want this area lighter than back here, I gotta hit it with the really light, fine dots, as opposed to here, we're gonna have the darker dots. Earlier in the bar, there's not a lot of people here. Marty's not here. Marty's a very boisterous individual. If you look at or listen to some of the other videos, you can hear a lot of boisterous voice. That's Marty. He's just naturally very boisterous. And I can hear the music relatively easily, so I get a feeling that this is going to be a no sound edition of Stippling Saturday. So this is the week that Russia has decided to invade Ukraine, and so things are tense. We were very fortunate this week that on Andy Smith's channel, he hosted the Professionals, and they did an entire episode about George Perez and his importance to the comic book industry, his contribution, how so many artists have been influenced by George. I am one of those individuals that's very heavily influenced by George. Thinking about George, though, is I can't look at his stuff before I start drawing, specifically before I start drawing, because when I have to do a layout for a page and I start drawing the panel, if I've looked at George's work, it heavily influences me, and as a result, George's style just flat out does not mesh with stippling, because he puts so tight lines and details on, and because I'm going for a much more realistic feel because of putting so much tone in everything. As a result, it just doesn't work. And when I do a panel and I can see the heavy influence by George, it's much harder for me to ink it, and so as a result, many times after I've looked at George's stuff, if I'm going to be going in and working on a page and drawing it, I need to deprogram myself. I need to look at other artists. I'll intentionally look at, I don't have much of his work, but I'll look at Toth and his stuff. I'll look at some Joe Kubert stuff. I'll even look at some Will Eisner stuff. I don't look too much, though, because I don't want to start mimicking their layouts. I don't want to start mimicking their line weights and how their style. So many times with many artists, I've got some books I just quickly flip through. When I do that, I'm mainly looking at like how they may do layouts, and I'm focusing more on that than specifically their style. Joe Kubert's Tarzan is one that I've discovered from listening to a lot of comic book artists that reference Joe Kubert. They will always bring up and mention his run on Tarzan, which was done in like 1972, and lots of times I have those issues, and I'll just quickly flip through to again just get an idea and feel for it. And lots of times now when I look at someone like George or Alex Toth, and I'll look at see how they did it, and just get a feel for it. Picked up a book at my local comic book store. It was a book from probably about 1983. It's called Tell Us. It was from DC Comics. It was a special, and it was done by Gil Kane. And I'm not a fan of Gil Kane's style. Never have been. But in looking at this book of Tell Us, I just look at how he, not necessarily how he renders stuff, but how he does his page layouts, how he worked in the era of his style, takes into account the limited color palette, the cheap printing methods that were used, and how he would intentionally draw in such a way so that way a flat color could be applied to it, and how he did that to show depth, and how Gil Kane was another one of those. He had reached the point that he could tell a story much more effectively with less lines than how so many artists convey a story with many lines, sometimes too many lines. It's easy to criticize my own work that I blend too much, and I need to show more contrast between light and dark, which is very hard when you get into this blending mindset. What I'm doing here with all these dots, many artists, if they're going to go this route, they would either put in harsh blacks, or what they might do is after they put in some lines to show like this area here and this area here, what they might do is where I'm putting in all these dots, they might put in a series of lines to show that this side's darker than the other side. And the farther back towards the ear and the jaw, they might add additional lines between those lines to give it even more depth and do more to round the shape. Because that's the main thing you have to remember, is that regardless of the style that I'm using, all I'm doing still is drawing a symbol. I'm drawing a symbol of a representation of someone that has lying on their back and has passed away. So what I'm wanting to do is, all I want to do is show the form and show the tone of the form, and how by adding more tone creates more volume and shape to the symbol that I'm drawing. So here where I put in all these lines, I'm now going in and these lines, like when I put them in here, okay, all I'm doing is putting in a visual mental reference point of the intensity of dots that I'm going to want to add in when I do it. So you take a look here, obviously more dots here than here, but yet you don't want to, you remember this area here is going to be darker. So we've gone about 50, doing 14 minutes, so that's enough for a video. I don't like to do videos that are too long. If I do a video that's too long, it doesn't get as many views, so I try to keep my videos at about 15 minutes now. Between 8 and 15 is the best. So there you go. More progress on the guy that's died. So there's your stippling Saturday for the day, and remember, just take life one dot at a time.